Alright, what we're going to make is a mailer for some jumbo prints. That's a sleeve that it's going to be sent out in. Open this up, and you have a set of prints inside of here. These little jumbo prints. This one has a set of 18, and it's on the final type of paper that's going to be used. Open the mailer up, and you have titles and thumbnails for the pictures. So we have two-sided printing, and we'll move this out of the way and assemble. And there's a set sequence of putting things together so that you don't cut or bend at the wrong time. It's as precise as possible. So we have our tools together. We're going to have a pair of rubber gloves, a pair of white cotton gloves, or actually you could use latex gloves too. And knife, a nice bone folder, and an awl to poke holes. And we'll set these out of here. So this is the side that we care about, and it's two-sided printing. And if you look, there are registration marks here, over here, on the top. There are registration marks and cut marks, crop marks, and on the other side, you'll see the same thing. These are used only to see how close your registration is on this two-sided printing. You don't use these to actually guide your folding or cutting. We're going to do that all over here. So the first thing that we're going to do is punch all holes for vertical fold lines and fold the vertical lines. And again, we're going to punch on these outer areas here. So this is our fold, and at this point I don't need these gloves on because I'm not going to be touching it too much, so I'm going to pull them off. So I'm going to go through here, just right on the outside, and this is going to be cut off. And I'm punching on the outside, like I said, because this is the side where the registration is super critical. So we're going to fold those, and we can see how good a job we did on registration, which is mighty tight because those holes are actually at the registration marks. But this layout on the inside is so loose, doesn't really matter that much if it's a bit off. So we're going to fold these. For these double lines, fold and tightly crease first the nearer, then the farther of the two. That is, for the first of the two folds, okay, we have here, these are going to be folded. For the first of the two folds, you want to be able to look up here and see the other ones, because we're going to fold it, then bend it, and then we're going to fold it again. Now, this bone folders are real nice, high quality. It's nylon, and it goes very smooth, and it's not going to want to leave marks. And I just sharpened it with some 220 grit sandpaper to get a good once. And then if you look at the tip of this, it's curved slightly. So we're just going to take it, insert it under the paper, and push up nice and tight, real nice tight fold. And I'm pushing firmly against the straight edge. Now we're going to set it down here, and we can put a tighter crease in later. Under here. So that not moving the straight edge and creasing is a great way to do this to maintain registration. Now we're going to spin it around and do it again. And again, I'll mention, first you want to do the fold that is nearer you, or nearer me, near you if you are the one doing the assembly. And you don't want the straight edge to move, of course. Just a quick note here, the straight edge has some gaffer's tape on the back of it to keep it from sliding. And then my excitement to show you that I lifted it up prior to folding, so put it back down. and I care only out of interest in how good my printing registration was where the crop marks are on this side. I'm going by those pinholes that I put in. Okay, so we have those folded, and I can fold them a bit more, and I'll do that later, but first I'm going to cut off the top and bottom because I don't need these registration marks. I'm going to cut from this side, okay, and just a little note here, this is going to be the flap of the folder that this one folds down onto. So I have a cut mark. All right, so we're going to cut off the crop marks on the top here because we don't need them anymore. This is going to be a guide for where we fold it. We needed them initially so that we could make these folds, but right now we don't. And this piece is going to be folded over by this piece. So we're not going to cut this here, we're actually going to cut it here. This one we're going to cut right here. So I'll go ahead and do that surface and lay this on. And I didn't put the real tight bend on these creases. I put a softer bend on the vertical creases so that I can maintain alignment a little bit better. So I'm going to go down on the marks that are slightly low, just so it makes it easy to fold. And we have a fairly new sharp blade on this. And I'll mention again that I'm cutting from the front surface because this is what we care about most appearance-wise. The way I'm cutting is the way, if at all possible, you should always cut where this clean straight edge is placed on the piece itself. If for some reason my knife should stray, the knife isn't going to stray into the piece, it would stray into the drop. Okay, so at this point, we're going to punch the pinholes for the horizontal folds, which are right here. And again, we're not punching, even though they're here, we're not going to punch here, we're punching from the front. And just punch anywhere on that line because those lines are going to be cut off anyways. Okay, we're going to make single horizontal folds for the center as well as the end flaps. That is, fold the innermost marks, okay? This is the inner mark, this is the inner mark, that's the outer mark, that's the outer mark. Fold the innermost marks all the way across because the center part is going to require a second fold, but only after we cut out this waist area, which you'll see in a second. You do not want to fold both of these lines all the way across or you'll put an unwanted crease in the end panels. So we're going to fold all the way across on the inner ones. Grab the bone folder again, going by the pinholes. Pop under, nice and snappy. And you need a high quality bone folder to be able to run this directly on to the piece without smudging it or putting minor abrasions on it. So instead of paying $5 or $6 for your bone folder, you need to pay maybe, I don't know if this was 12 or 15, that kind of price, but it's just so much nicer, so much lower friction. This piece, after it was printed and sat with the ink drying for a day, the outer surface was sprayed with an ultraviolet barrier, a matte protectant. I'm going to leave that go for a second here. Okay, on the outer surface of the mailer, we're going to cut out the slots to separate the center panels. First, we're going to cut the tiny horizontal pieces. All right, so we have the folds on the inner line here, and now before we make the fold for the center parts, where we're going to hold the photographs, we're going to cut out these tiny little pieces. So we use the registration marks on the outer part just to determine where we're going to cut. So we're cutting this white slot out on both places, and I'm going to cut beyond it just a bit at the bases. And then we cut it out, we're actually going to take about 2 millimeters off on each time. And depending on how tight your layout is or isn't, you can cut more or less out and it'll fold a little more easily. But the thickness of that inner pocket or I should say the pictures that you put in there, if they're fat pictures, a lot of pictures, or if it's thicker paper, then this inner pocket needs to be just a little deeper. But just cutting out here a little more from this image and a little more from this image, when you take the slot out, will loosen it up slightly. So I'm going to take about 2 millimeters off into each image. And again, I'm covering this and cutting on this side. And this way I can see, how far into the picture I'm cutting. So I'm taking a decent amount off. And that is because I'm using a thick, high quality paper for my prints. So they're gonna fill that pocket real well. Give myself just a little more room. And at this point that should come out. If it doesn't, you might have to fool around a little bit. So there are no marks or anything. I'm just going by the look of the, how much just by eye that I'm taking off about 2 millimeters. That looks like about 2.5 millimeters there. All right. So check my script here. Okay, so now we're going to make the second push-out 3D fold for the center panels on the top and bottom of these center flaps. So we are going to use these holes that we put earlier, but again, emphasizing that you do not want to fold these up, you just want to fold that up. And if you remember the example that we started with, the final product, those photographs, that's where they're going to sit inside here. And there's the inner fold that we already have, and we're going to fold the outer fold. Only on the center panel. Put my gloves on now, because I'm going to have to, put a little crease in these with my hands. And I don't know that I need to use the bone folder for this. I'm going to pull that. Sometimes just a push with clean hands. Don't need it quite as severe as the bone folder will put it. Even though this is sprayed with that protective coating, you're likely going to, go ahead and move this up now too, you're likely going to get a small cracking of the ink around the paper when you bend it, and the bone folder is going to do that even more. You can see this is going to fold down here now, and if we had not cut off a bit more, we wouldn't have the distance. So that looks pretty, and that looks pretty. And then we have this. So what we're going to do now is cut this off, if you want to. We're going to butt the top of both of these up against the guide in the paper cutter. This piece is going to fold. This is going to be the inside flap. So I'm going to cut off again, you know, a couple 3 millimeters into this more, and then we can cut it. Yeah, if it's too short, you can cut it again, you know. But this is folded. Make a point. It's obvious if you look at it. You cut it off after you fold it. You never cut it and then fold it. You fold it to the final form and then cut it off. And then we'll run this over. Careful not to do mechanical damage. And this cut off just like at the very edge of that image, and you can cut off more if you want to, but you want this as long as possible because it's going to need to stretch across the images. So at this point we're ready to put the photographs in there. Here's a package of the final pictures. And I've used a de-roller to take the crease for the most part out of here. And just slip those into the bottom. Get them up nice and snug. And depending on the type of paper you use, you know, it could be more or less snug. Bring this down, close it, nice, clean, pull it up. And these are fat prints. Just kind of bang, bang, you know, so the photographs are all the way down to this end. And we'll give a nice snug pull up. If you need to do any adjustment on this, you know, like, but this, it's fitting pretty well here. But I like to, after it's final pieces in there, just kind of rub along that spine. So there's the final piece. They're all set to go. And then when somebody gets it, they can open it up, look at the picture and say, I wonder what this is, and then they have all the titles and captions. All right, that's it.